used to work off duty at the bars quite a bit, to where I'm not a big drinker or anything like that. So I'd rather go to a bar and make money instead of go to a bar and spend money.
I'm with you.
And I was out with my partner. We had 2 officers working the bar. We used to work, security there at the door front. And he happened to be a canine officer. So he had his dog. He'd let his dog out every now and then. And while we were working, we usually worked like midnight to 4.
Mm-hmm.
And he has his dog out, and we're standing there talking. Of course, everybody loves the dog and everything. This guy comes up. He's like, "Oh, can I come up? Can I pet your dog?" So he goes over there, goes pet the dog. Next thing you know, the dog hits on his pocket and sits. So we just look at each other and we go, if you want to smoke marijuana, that's your own thing. And if you want to do it in your own home, that's fine. But we don't recommend you come out to a club and go to pet the canine dog while you got a pocket full of dope. So needless to say, he went to jail. They just come walking right up to you. It's pretty good stuff. That's
what an idiot.
True story.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the next episode of Game of Crimes with Murph in the morning. So happy that you came back. I love what I'm doing. I love bringing heroes in here every week to talk to you. We have a special guest every week, and this week's no different. You can see him on there already. Man's got a serious look about him, doesn't he? I tell you what, when you find out about him, you're going to find out you don't want to mess around with this dude. But coming back every week to Game of Crimes, I appreciate your support. If you're not watching this on YouTube, I'd appreciate if you go over and on the video section there, just in the search bar, type in Game of Crimes Podcast. Underneath that, when it pulls up, just hit that subscribe button for me. I'm trying to grow the channel as much as I can. So I appreciate all your support, but also appreciate your support coming back every week. So thank you. So you can see our gentleman sitting here today. This is Mr. Allan Manganello. Alan, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, Murph. Good to be here.
Well, I hope you say that when we finish. We'll see how things go today. So far, nobody's put a contract out on me, so I think we're doing okay here. But Allan is a retired police officer from the Louisville, I think you call it Louisville Metropolitan Police Department.
That's right.
So in Louisville, Kentucky. So in honor of that, I wore my West Virginia shirt here today. You can see Go Mountaineers. Most of you people that don't live in Kentucky or West Virginia think we're all hillbillies and we're all related. So go ahead, piss me off. I'll send Allan over to talk to you. I'm just kidding, everybody. But let's get into our small town police blotter like we always do every week. I usually don't tell our guests until the night before we do the interview, and I did the same thing with Allan last night. And just like every other guest on here, there's no hesitation. He's like, "Hey, whatever you need, Murph, let's go." But before we get started here, I want to just read our little disclaimer. This is a show about crime. We talk about bad people doing bad things, and we talk about bad people doing bad things to good people. Now, we take our show and our stories here very seriously, but we're going to take every opportunity we can to have a little chuckle, a little laugh at the expense of some of the dumb criminals that are out there. And you know what I'm talking about. If you listen to the show before, I keep thinking I'm going to run out of dumb criminals here in Florida. I could probably have the podcast for another 40 years and still not run out of them. There's a fresh crop every day around here. So being that Allan is in Kentucky, we found one. Actually, I believe it's in Louisville, isn't it?
We had one right here in Louisville. Louisville right now, it's people it's hard to find work. Hard to find workers more specifically, and like you show up any place and it's like that you can't get anything done because nobody showed up that day or you don't have enough staff or understaffed constantly. But so if some guy comes to you, his name has to be Luke Payne. I don't recommend you hire this guy necessarily. Okay. What he was doing is he was working at a Dunkin' Donuts, and he decided but he didn't think his coworkers would recognize him. He has this great idea, So he goes in there and he wears this mask and he goes in and robs the Dunkin' Donuts, and they couldn't identify him obviously because he had the mask on. Well, he starts, as most robbers do, they get pretty cocky. They get away with it one time, they want to do it again, and it's a matter of time before they get sloppy. Well, it didn't take Luke very long. His second robbery, he goes in, he leaves the mask behind and doesn't use the mask. So he just figured, well, they won't recognize me anyway. They don't know who I am. It was his coworker. So obviously, as soon as he left, they called the police and turned him in, and they get him for first-degree robbery. And he also had a warrant on top of that. So it's funny how they just bring attention to themselves. I don't recommend that you hire this guy for your business there.
Yeah, remember that name, everybody. Luke Payne. Holy cow.
So, what they say is, we don't catch the good ones.
Yeah.
So we don't catch the smart ones, I should say. And it's job security. What are you going to do? They just keep us employed.
Low hanging fruit, man.
That's right. It actually does, Murph. It reminds me of a situation I had too. When I was working on the police department, I used to work off duty at the bars quite a bit, to where I'm not a big drinker or anything like that. So I'd rather go to a bar and make money instead of go to a bar and spend money.
I'm with you.
And I was out with my partner. We had two officers working the bar. We just worked, security there at the door front. And he happened to be a canine officer. So he had his dog. He'd let his dog out every now and then. And, while we were working, we used to work like midnight to 4, make a little extra cash after shift. And he has his dog out, and we're standing there talking. Of course, everybody loves the dog and everything. This guy comes up. He's like, "Oh, can I come up? Can I pet your dog?" So he goes over there, goes pet the dog. Next thing you know, the dog hits on his pocket and shit. So we there and we go, "Look, if you want to smoke marijuana, that's your own thing. And if you want to do it in your own home, that's fine. But we don't recommend you come out to a club and go to pet the canine dog while you got a pocket full of dope." So needless to say, he went to jail. So they just come walking right up to you. It's pretty good stuff. That's
what an idiot.
True story.
That's better than Luke Payne's story.
That's a good one.
I tell you, I keep running my nose here, guys. I tell you what, it's. I woke up this morning here in Orlando. It's 39 degrees. It's just not supposed to get that cold here. And I went to the gym. In fact, Allan here was ready to go before I was ready to go. I got back late from the gym this morning, so I haven't had time to clean up a whole lot. But my nose won't quit running because I'm just not used to the cold weather anymore.
You beat me to the gym. I got to go later on.
I'm tell you what, man, if I don't go in the mornings, I get busy doing other things. I just don't go.
That's right.
So it's better to get it out of the way. So let's get up to our Florida story. And this time we're not in Tampa or St. Pete or Clearwater this time, because it seems like the majority of the dumb criminals live in that part of the state here. This one, we're up in Gainesville. And you know what college is up there? University of Florida. So we got a Gainesville man, Maurice McQueen. He was 20 years old. He'd been sitting in a car at the Kangaroo Express parking lot located on Southwest 20th Avenue for several hours. Of course, that got a little suspicious because the only people that do that is people that are doing things wrong or cops doing surveillance. So the responding officers, they come over, they approach the car, and McQueen, what's he do? Well, he notices he starts reaching under the seat. It's never a good thing when a cop's going up on you, I'm telling you. Then he moved his hands toward his back. Police ordered McQueen to show his hands and unlock the car. Of course, he ignored their orders because he's just a law-abiding citizen. Instead, he whips out a blue bag of what the report says was cocaine. He bit into the bag. He ripped it open with his teeth, and then he stuffed his face into the bag like a horse devouring a feed bag. Jeez. I don't know how big this bag was, but you think he could eat that much cocaine? According to the police report, McQueen then pulled out a cup of water and began drinking to wash it all down. Man, so it appeared that this was more of an attempt to hide drugs than it was a situation where he thought cocaine was delicious. I'm sure that's what it was. It must not have been all that much because I don't think they rushed him to the hospital and he didn't die from it. But he finally came out of their car. And what's he do then? He refuses to cooperate. I wish you were there, Allan. When we're going to talk about what that means here in a little bit. But he was eventually taken down to the ground and handcuffed, and he spent his time in the county jail. I mean, what do you think's going to happen?
A lot of these people, they're opportunists. They don't make good plans. Obviously, they just react at the moment. They use that lizard part of the brain and they have what's called an amygdala hijack, and they just freak out and they don't make rational decisions at that point.
Now, that term you just used, I think you just called me a bad name, but I don't know what that means, so you got away with it there.
I can explain it, because I'm sure it's going to come up somewhere in our conversation.
Excellent. Well, let's wait till we get to talking about that, because this guy has, and this guy being Allan here, has an ongoing business that he's been involved with for a number of years. I think you're hitting about 40 years now.
That's right.
He is a Jiu Jitsu instructor, but I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because we want to talk about your background and how you got to that point. But a lot of this is going to be focused on it because he teaches Jiu Jitsu now for law enforcement. In fact, he travels around the country and does that as a retired police officer. So, and I've got a lot of questions about that because I don't know Jiu Jitsu. I took Taekwondo when I was a city cop back in the 70s. And I did that because I kept breaking my hand, fighting with my hands. So you learn to fight with your feet. But I think I don't even remember Jiu Jitsu being that big a thing back then.
No, it wasn't. It was new to the U.S., really. It didn't break out really until the early 90s.
Oh, well, yeah. I was a Fed by then, and you know about those Feds, you know how they are.
That's right.
But you might be wondering how I met Allan here. Well, if you remember back in episode 170, and that was November of 2024, we had an Orlando police officer on here, Mike Denton. I tell you what, Mike just has impressed me. He continues to impress me. If you haven't listened to his episode, the guy did some tours over in Afghanistan. There's no reason he should be alive today for what he went through, the Battle of Wanat. You need to go back and listen to that episode if you haven't already. Mike and I kind of stay in touch here. He and his wife were just good Christian people. They've got their own children, and they adopted a little girl, and then she had a brother, so they went and adopted a little boy. And I tell you what, I look at these young police officers, and you hear stories like that, and I just look at them like my sons. That's because I'm old enough to be their dad. But they just impressed me so much. Well, he called me, and he said, we just had a guy come in and train us here. Mike teaches at the Orlando Police Academy. So he started telling me about this guy named Allan, and he said he teaches Jiu Jitsu for law enforcement. Like, all right, that sounds good, but why are you calling me? And he's like, man, he's got some stories. You need to hear the story. The guy's motivational. He's a can-do. He's got a positive attitude. Mike thinks the world of you, Allan.
Mike's a guy. Great guy.
He certainly is. And so me being the suspicious person that I am after being a cop for 38 years, if I don't know you, I'm going to vet you. And so Allan, he was with Louisville Police Department. If you guys remember, back in, let's see, when was this? January of 23, episode 79, we had a guy on here named John Mattingly. John is a retired Louisville Police Department officer also. He was a sergeant. He was the guy that was involved in the Breonna Taylor shooting. John is the only police officer that was wounded that day, and if it wasn't for his buddies, probably would have bled out and died that day. They used a tourniquet to save his life. But John and I have stayed in contact. We've got to be pretty good friends, and of course, I texted him and said, hey, you ever heard of this guy, Allan? He came back immediately. He said, super guy, know him extremely well. If you got a chance to get him on the show, get him on the show. So when John vouched for you, Allan, that's the highest rating you're going to get in my book, because I think the world of that guy.
John's an incredible guy. He's one of the first guys I met when I was on the department. And just outstanding guy, great cop, just great person, you know.
He really is. I mean, just laid back. I don't think I'd want to see him mad, because those kind of guys, when they get mad, you probably don't want to be around. But I mean, just when he talks about what happened, I got him invited out to the Southern California Gang Conference in San Diego last year, and he told a story about the Breonna Taylor case. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't heard that, go back and listen to his episode, please, because what the media told you is not at all the truth. The things that really ticked me off about the whole investigation is a bunch of well-known, I call them pretty people, whether they're sports stars or movie stars or politicians or the vice president of the United States, came out against them without getting the facts first. Now, we don't make any bones about it here on the Game of Crimes. Nobody hates a bad cop more than a good cop. And I'll be the first one to call them out when that's the case. This was not the case. This is the media and specific groups trying to promote their own agenda to make the cops look bad. So
even Ellen DeGeneres got on TV and said that we killed Breonna Taylor in her bed. We went to the wrong house and killed an innocent lady in her bed, and it couldn't have been more of a lie than anything else. When you have somebody on that platform talking about what we're trying to do, it's so frustrating, because you can't even defend yourself. What can you say?
Yeah. Well, you could say you people need to do your own damn research first before you go out and start making all these accusations against men and women who put a uniform on every single day to go out and protect us. These are the people that are running towards the gunshots as we're running away. These are the people that are still going to be there to protect you, even when you call them derogatory terms and you make false accusations. So, man, I got on my soapbox early on this one. That's what John does to me, you know?
Right.
Pull my sleeves up now.
And rightly so, right? Rightly so.
You know what? Our regular listeners hear me say this frequently, as often as I possibly can, and I say this at every public speaking event that I get to go to with my old DEA partner, Javier Pena, is don't let anybody else tell you what to think. And that includes Murph. Don't believe what I tell you. Vet what I say. Go out. You hear what I say. Go do your own research. You've all got a brain. God gave us all intelligence. You do the research, and then you make up your mind what's correct and what's not correct, not the media. You got to think about it. They're trying to sell ads on their platforms, right? So they've got to bring in viewers. And it seems like the more outrageous stories they can promote, the more advertisers they get, the more viewers they get. So please just don't let others tell you, especially the media or politicians. Do your own research. Okay, I think I'm over it now. All right, Al, well, thank you, man. I appreciate you joining in there, because I just think the world of John and all the guys there that were involved in that operation. I just think they all got a raw deal. So, all right. Well, let's get over to Mr. Allan here and find out about your background a little bit. Where are you from originally, Allan?
I was born in Connecticut, and Bridgeport, Connecticut, as a matter of fact. Lived there till I was about 6, and then moved to Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, which is about 2 hours north of Philadelphia, up near Scranton.
Mm-hmm.
And lived there till I was about 12, and then moved down to Louisville, Kentucky, against my will, in the early 80s. And here I am. Been here ever since.
How old were you when you moved to Louisville?
About 12. I think I was 12 years old.
And why do you say it was against your will?
Well, because I was just getting to the point where I, had some established friends. As you hit the age, you're just hitting puberty and all that. So I was starting to like girls and all this kind of thing, and had all my little group of friends. And my mother came to me and said, we came down and visited Kentucky, came down and visited Louisville in October of 1980, I guess it was. And then in January, she says, "Hey, what do you think about moving to Louisville, Kentucky?" I was like, "No, I don't. I don't want to move to Kentucky." She goes, "Well, start saying goodbye to your friends because we're leaving in 2 weeks."
Oops.
And that was it. So, and of course, there's no internet or no technology back then. So when you left, you left. You didn't see anybody, talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And, that was it. So I was down here and had to start a new life, and didn't want to be part of it.
I had a very similar story, and this is your story, not mine, but I mean, it's just so close that when we were living in Tennessee in Murfreesboro, just south of Nashville. And my dad and my uncle, their family grew up in southern West Virginia, and my uncle had just gotten out of the Air Force, and they decided, my dad had retired from the ministry, and they decided they wanted to open up a flooring store, and they were going to do that in southern West Virginia in Princeton. So I'm ready to go into high school, and well, actually I was in middle school. I had one more year of middle school left, and we left at the end of the school year from Murfreesboro, so that was probably May or June, and then moved straight to West Virginia. I didn't know his soul up there. My grandmother was there. I had a couple cousins, but they were all girls, and that was a hard transition. And then you start in school, and you go out on the football field and try out, and people weren't really accepting. And here's the funny thing. They made fun of my Tennessee accent. I'm looking at them going, "Have you guys heard yourselves talk? You talk like hillbillies." So
I got made fun of my accent when I moved down here, my northern accent.
I'll bet. Here in Orlando, there's a lot of northern accents here in Florida.
Sure.
So you're in Louisville. I'm going to guess your dad's not in the scene.
Correct. I didn't have a great home life as far as my parents go, because my dad left when I was 5. I saw him once when I was 8 years old, and then I never saw him again. My mother remarried when I was 5 years old, so I had a stepdad in the picture, but he was pretty much worthless. And then when I was 18, I left home and never looked back, never talked to my parents after that. I just
to this day?
On my own, to this day.
Wow.
Yep. Moved on out. They weren't great people. Went through a lot of stuff with them. So it was before, for instance, before they had theft of identity, my mother had been using my social security number, my ID, and all this kind of stuff, my information anyway, to open accounts. So when I moved out when I was 18, the reason we moved so much is she was a notorious liar and like a gypsy, basically. She'd run up bills in one place and then leave. And she had like aliases and all that kind of stuff. So we moved around a lot, not because we were in the military or anything like that. It's just because she'd burn bridges and have to move. So we moved a lot. And then when I was 18, when I decided, I'm out of here, I'm gone, I tried to establish credit. And not only did I have zero credit, I had negative credit. I owed tens of thousands of dollars to all these things like sanitation, electricity, water, all this stuff I owed money to, credit companies, whatever. And I had to write letters because there was no internet. I had to write letters to these people saying, "Look, you're saying I opened up this account. I was 13 years old when that account opened. There's no way I could have had it." So I had to try to prove all this. I had to do all this work to get to zero before I could even start over, start establishing credit. So it was kind of tough, and that's why when I was 18, I left, never looked back. And I'm the oldest of five kids, so I had to recruit my siblings, and we can even get into that in a minute too. But my one sister was 14 when she moved out, and she moved in with me, and so I was pretty much taking care of somebody my whole life.
Wow. I mean, talking about starting behind the 8 ball.
That's right. Yeah, I was definitely behind the 8 ball. I had to do a lot just to get to zero.
So your 4 siblings, are they boys or girls, or?
I'm the oldest, and then I have a sister, Christy, who's right under me, and then there was Ashley, another girl under her, and then Michael, my brother, and then my youngest sister, Courtney. So I'm the oldest of 5.
So as they became adults, did they encounter the same challenges as you with the Social Security number and so forth?
No, they didn't do that because they weren't old enough at the time, I guess. Being that I was the oldest, my mother would use me. And when I was 13 or 14, my next sister down was probably 10. So they didn't use their stuff. They just used mine.
Wow.
But they had their own challenges with my parents too. My parents, they all bailed out for my parents as well.
Jeez, what a challenge. I mean,
Yeah.
holy cow, that takes a quick maturity level coming on. You said your 14-year-old sister moved out and moved in with you.
That's right.
Were you an adult at that time?
Yes, I was, being I was 18, she was 14. So I moved in with a friend of mine, and his mom took us in. Amazing woman. And my kids call her grandma to this day.
Nice.
So when I moved in and I asked her, I said, first of all, I was only supposed to stay there for 2 weeks. I asked my buddy, Jim, I go, hey, can you ask your mom if I can stay for 2 weeks so I can get on my feet? Well, I wound up staying there for a few years after that. But then when I was in there just a few months, I guess, my stepdad was moving to Tennessee and was going to take my sister, and she didn't want to leave. So she said, can I come stay with you? So I asked, hey, we have a question. Can my sister come live with us? And she goes, oh, I thought you were going to ask me something really heavy, really big. Of course she can come stay with us, so no questions asked. And my sister wound up staying there until she graduated college and got married. So married her high school sweetheart and now living a great life, has kids, the whole thing, grandkids now. And so it all worked out. But yeah, we all had our own set of challenges.
Yeah,
for sure.
Those kind of stories just kind of restore your faith in mankind, that these people would take you in. Do you still stay in touch with that family?
Just about every day. Yes, we're still. In fact, my buddy Jim, I met him in high school. I was a sophomore. He was a freshman. Met him in Spanish class. Well, I just tell everybody he's my brother. When I introduce him, I just say he's my brother. It's easier to explain than just he's my friend, but he's more than just my friend. So
absolutely.
I just say, he's my brother. And, we like all the family, all the holidays, we go to his family's house. So I've done since I was 18. So Christmas, Easter, everything, we always go to his family, and all his relatives. They took me in, no questions asked, and they treated me like family since the beginning.
That's fantastic. What about the 3 younger siblings? Were they part of that family?
My 3 younger ones, no, they weren't, because they were younger from there. So my sister was 3.5 years younger than me, and then 4 years after that was the next sister, and then the next year is my brother, next year is my sister. So those 3 were pretty much on their own. They're half siblings anyway. They were product of the stepdad. So my sister and I had the same father, and then the 3 had a different dad, but we all lived in the same house. We all grew up together. So that's why I don't consider them half siblings. We all went through the same stuff.
Yeah. Just like you introduced them as brothers and sisters.
Correct.
Yeah, I understand. When you were going through high school, did you play any sports or get involved in anything?
No, ironically, my parents didn't like sports. They didn't want me playing sports. I played Pee Wee football. I love football, and I'm a big football fan and everything. But I wanted to play in high school, but I didn't have the support to be able to do that. So I didn't play anything in high school at all. I just got involved in martial arts and everything, and that was pretty much my thing.
So you started jiu-jitsu back then?
I started, interestingly, being that I moved so much, I was always the new kid in school. As a matter of fact, by the time I graduated high school, I'd been to 14 different schools. So, and it wasn't that I was getting kicked out. It's just that we moved so much. My parents constantly took me out and put me in another school, and I was constantly having to change, and that made me the new kid, which was an easy target. So I got bullied a lot. I got picked on a lot. I didn't have anybody to back me up. I didn't have anybody to turn to. So just an easy target. I had no older brothers or sisters to look up to. I didn't have a dad to look up to. I was literally on my own since I was a kid. So I didn't know what to do about it. Well, my stepdad was a big. Remember the series Kung Fu back in the 70s, David Carradine, before he got all weird. Anyway, he was a big Kung Fu fan, so we used to watch that show. And there was up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, there was up in Wilkes-Barre, there was a Kung Fu school going on. So he enrolled me in Kung Fu with him. There was me and one other kid, were the only kids in the whole school. So we started doing Kung Fu, and I fell in love with the martial arts. I used to watch Kung Fu theater and all that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be a ninja so bad back in the 80s. I was gonna go to ninja school if I could find one. And so I started Kung Fu when I was 8, and had that love for martial arts. And then as I got older, we moved to Kentucky, and then I was walking with my sister to the store, and there was a school there that said karate, Kung Fu, and Jiu Jitsu on it. And I was like, I don't even know what Jiu Jitsu is. It sounds like ninjutsu though, so maybe it's my ninja school I'm looking for. So I went in. I was already familiar with Kung Fu. Well, I met the best instructor I ever had in my life. His name is Jean-Louis Arsenault. He's from Canada, but he lived in Massachusetts, but he's Canadian French. And he moved down here when he was 21 years old to open up a karate school here in Louisville. And I went under him, and he was the best instructor I ever had in anything.
Nice.
And he really took me under his wing, and he was the mentor. I was the man in my life I needed, even though he was only like 6 years older than me. He taught me a lot about being very genuine. My mother wasn't a genuine person at all. She was a fraud, a fake. She lied about everything. And this guy never lied about anything, was 100% honest with you. If he didn't know something, he'd tell you he didn't know it. And I never met anybody like that. And I really admired it. So got my black belt in Kempo karate under him and became great friends with him, and never lost contact with him. And he moved back up to Massachusetts. I bought the academy from him. And yes, I bought the karate school from him because, backing up a little bit, my mother wanted me to be a veterinarian. We loved animals and all that, had a bunch of animals in the house and all that, whatever. But I loved animals. I didn't want to be a vet, but she wanted me to be a veterinarian so she can say her son was a doctor. That's what her thing was, right? So I'm like, Mom, I don't want to be a vet. I said, I want to teach karate. That's what I want to do. I want to teach martial arts. And she looked at me right in my face, 16, and she goes, don't be stupid. You can't make a living teaching martial arts. And if I could have said, hold my beer, I would have said it. Put a fire under me. One, for fight, but two, that was just my passion from when I was a kid.
Right.
So I went full bore. That's what I was going to do. And I bought the karate school from him. I started teaching karate, and I heard of the Gracie family, this family out of Brazil that did Jiu Jitsu and everything. And then I wound up seeking them out, having to go to California to train with them. And they invented this thing called the Ultimate Fighting Championship, as we know as the UFC. And when I watched them do their thing on that, I was like, I've got to train with these guys. So I looked them up, started going out to California, and I wanted to find the best in the world. And I found them, and I went out there, started training with them, and I've been with them ever since. So I started training jiu-jitsu when I was about 25. I started with the Gracie family.
Wow. So what I'm hearing is, if somebody tells you you're not going to do something, might be a little rebellious there, huh?
A little bit. I like a challenge. I work best under pressure, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my wife tells me that I'm very persistent, that once I get my mind made up on something, if I want something, it's going to happen. I'm going to make it happen one way or another.
Yeah. So I can see your sergeant on the patrol when you're a patrolman saying, all right, let's see, I need Allan to do this. So I'm going to tell him, whatever you do, Allan, you can't do that, because I know what's going to happen. A little reverse psychology.
Not so much as a rebellion thing, is more of a challenge. If you don't think I can do it, I want to go try to do it. If you tell me I'm not allowed to do it, I'm a rule follower. I'll go with it. That's fine. I may not agree with you, but if you say I can't do it, I won't do it then.
Yeah. And not to get too far ahead, but how old were you when you bought the karate school?
Let's see. I bought the school in 96. So I would have been, not a mathologist here. I was a cop. So I guess I'd have been 28.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when you came out of high school, did you have ambitions to go to college?
Yes, I did have ambitions to go to college. In fact, I went to University of Louisville for not even quite a semester, really. And I majored in biology. I was gonna get into veterinary school. That was kind of the plan, is, my mother had me on the track for that. So I went for that. But then she had a falling out, with her parents. She cleaned them out of all their money and everything. And then my grandmother fell and broke her hip. So I moved in with them to take care of them. So I took care of my grandparents. So I couldn't go to school. I couldn't finish school. I couldn't, my friends were starting to go in the military and that kind of thing. That wasn't an option for me. So I couldn't leave my grandparents or my siblings behind. I was trying to take care of them, making sure they were okay, because I had 3 other siblings still living with my mother. They moved out to Eastern Kentucky. So I was trying to keep in contact with them as best I could, but my mother wouldn't let me have contact with them. So I was having to try to find ways to contact them.
Oh, gee.
Of course, before internet. So it wasn't that simple, and then I eventually got them out of the house too. I wound up taking them out of the house with me. My 2 sisters anyway. My brother wound up staying and doing his own thing, but I got my sisters out of the house.
Wow. Good for you, man. So you're what, 18 years old this time?
That's right. I was 18 when I moved out. It was about between the times I was 18 to about 22 is when I was really trying to get the family safe and get them all squared away.
That's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, it was quite a bit.
What were you doing to make money at that time?
I was working 3 jobs, as a matter of fact. I worked for a veterinary clinic. I was going around painting supermarkets, and I was teaching karate. And I also worked at a car wash. Whatever I could do to, try to pay the bills and, be able to make the money. So I made my schedule work however I could. Certain days I worked at the car wash. Certain days I'd work at the veterinary clinic, painting, if I had some open time and I can go paint, I worked with a painter, whatever I could do.
Yep. Yeah, I remember those days. Not fondly either, but I mean, you're right. You have to do what you have to do to make ends meet, and the responsibility of taking care of your brothers and sisters, or at least your sisters. Holy cow. And then your grandparents on top of that.
That's right.
You really had to grow up quick.
That's what they tell me. I don't know any difference, so I don't know what it's supposed to be like,
Yeah. Well, a lot of people would have said screw it and not taken that responsibility. So that says a lot about your integrity right there. To me, it does. I'm sure it does to everybody else as well. How did you get interested in law enforcement?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Well, I was teaching karate full time. That's what I was doing, and it was okay. Yeah, I was getting paid, but not, you're basically a starving artist, if you will.
Yeah.
You don't make a whole lot of money doing that, especially then. And I got married. I had 2 kids. Had a boy in '95, Sebastian, and had my daughter 97, Michaela. She goes by Mickey now, and I used to call her Mickey B. Her name is Michaela Brooks, so I called her Mickey B when she was a baby. So now she just tells her her name is Mickey. Nobody even knows her name is Michaela except for me.
Yeah.
Anyway, I had 2 kids, and then I wound up going through a divorce. And when I went through the divorce, they paid child support, and I'm wasn't a deadbeat dad by any means. I'm very involved with my kids. I love my kids so much. So I started getting a little stressed out because I had to pay child support every week. And for the record, I was never late. I was paid early. So nobody's going to come after me for flagrant non-support. So anyway, staying real involved with them, I was like, man, I was starting to get stressed because by the way, I had no health insurance or anything. I had to sell my truck. I had a Toyota truck when my son was born, when Sebastian was born. I had to sell my truck to pay for the birth. It was like $13,000 or something crazy. And I didn't have health insurance. So I had to find ways to make things work. I can remember calling my ex-wife saying, hey, I'm coming home, but we either get diapers tonight or we eat. Which one do you want? And it's like, usually it's the diapers. So that's pretty much the stage we were in at the moment, Well, anyway, so as I go through the divorce, I didn't have any money to really pay the child support and take care of me, and not to mention didn't have any benefits. So I was like starting to stress out. What am I going to do for retirement? What am I do for insurance? Well, I was teaching a bunch of cops, and they said, man, you should put in for the police department. And I was like, man, I don't know if I can do that and teach karate at the same time, though. And a lot of them said, man, we can help you out. Some other guys said, hey, if we can teach classes, we can cover classes. So we pretty much piecemealed it together best we could. And I decided to apply for the police department. I was 32 by this point, so it was a whole new career for me. I couldn't have a desk job. I'm too active. I'm too high-strung kind of guy. So I couldn't get a job just sitting in a factory or working in a factory or sitting in a cubicle somewhere. Nothing wrong with those jobs. It just wasn't me. It wasn't my personality.
Right.
So honestly, and I never had any cops in my family or anything like that. So I applied for the job for the exact reasons that I tell people don't apply for police work. You don't do it for just the paycheck and the benefits. If you do it, you do it because it's the right thing to do. Well, anyway, it happened to be the best decision I ever made in my life. So January of 2001, I got picked for the police academy, and I started then. So clearly I just did it for a regular paycheck and retirement and health insurance. And once I got on, I realized it was probably the best decision I ever made.
Had it ever entered your mind at any point in your life that, I might be a cop someday?
No, I always liked police and fire and all that kind of thing. I always thought that was cool, but I never saw myself doing that. My passion was martial arts. I wanted to teach martial arts. And when cops came in and I would teach them, I was just like, man, that, I thought that was cool, but I never envisioned myself doing it. I never saw myself doing that until, I got pressed with some, I had some pressure and pressures of life, and I had to make some decisions. I'm like, what am I going to do? And then I was like, I can see myself doing that. That I can see myself doing, but I didn't really see myself doing it until I was in that situation.
So at 32 years old, were you the oldest rookie in your academy class?
No, actually I wasn't. There was somebody else my age, and there was another guy who was older than me, who's in his 40s, as a matter of fact. So I guess they were getting desperate. But I don't know. But, back then, it's a lot different than it is now. Now you can't get enough people to fill the seats, even apply for a department, and understandably so. But back then we had like 1,300 people applying for 29 spots. So it was pretty competitive, when I was putting in for it.
Yeah. And I'm debating whether to say this. I was reading some articles about you, and I read some articles about, and through John's experiences and reading through articles about Breonna Taylor, that the leadership at Louisville PD didn't seem to be pro cop on the street.
No, it really wasn't. They were more worried about their own agenda and, trying to, I wouldn't even say the masses, but please the people that were the loudest, I guess you could say. And they weren't there for the police themselves. They definitely weren't backing us, and it was very frustrating. I dealt with that a lot myself. different situations on that department. It was just insane. It made the work environment very difficult. And that's what hurt morale.
Right. And how many officers did Louisville have back then?
We had like 1,200 officers. Now we're down to, I think that's like 900 or something, almost like 1,000 maybe now. So we're, severely short-staffed. But I don't know that we were ever full force. I think we were pretty close, maybe 1,100, close to 1,200 when I came on. So I know we were pretty close to full force.
And today it's the same with DEA. My partner and I, we get to go speak to the academy a couple times every year, and it's supposed to be 50 basic agent trainees per class. And right now that seems like they're lucky if they can get 30, 35 in there.
Right. Now we have like 48 beats in the academy class, and you can't get 30 people to apply. Yeah. We're having academy classes of 12, 15 people. We're supposed to have 48. It's unbelievable. And even those 12 to 15 are bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
They're not, they're squeaking by, if at all, just, as far as qualifications go, just because you can't get good people to apply.
Yep. You would think at some point that the management, chiefs, city councils, government would step back and say, what the heck happened? Why can't we get recruits now? When I applied for DEA, there were probably 10,000 applicants. It's outrageous. It was very competitive. And now you can't beg people to come on board. And that's you and I know what it is.
Exactly. And back then it was honorable to be a police officer. The public loved you. Now you're the bad guy. Now you're a villain. And they're caught in a cycle because they're hiring people that aren't that qualified. And next thing you know, 5 years after they've been on the department, you see them all over the news for doing silly things. And that makes all cops look bad. And now who wants to apply now and get that kind of job? Well, now you get people that are bottom of the barrel of playing, and they go, well, we have to fill these seats. We got to get somebody. Let's go ahead and take them. We'll do the best we can with them. Well, then a few years in, they're making silly mistakes again. And now you see them all over the news, and they're caught in the cycle.
Absolutely. It's outrageous what's going on. And that's a lot of the reason that I'm continuing with Game of Crimes here, because one of the primary focuses of this podcast is to bring on heroes to show the public what really goes on. Not what the media wants you to see, but what really goes on behind the badge. So that's my little cheesy commercial there for Game of Crimes. Yep.
Mission.
Exactly. I like to say, I coined this little stupid saying here, but you took an oath, I took an oath, we put on that badge. And just because we retired doesn't mean that our oaths ever expired.
That's correct. Once a cop, always a cop.
That's it. You bleed blue. You continue till the day you die. We're going to get into what you're doing to train law enforcement now. I'm trying to do the podcast and speak to audiences and anything I can do to promote military and law enforcement and first responders. That's my mission in retirement here. When you were in the academy, how long was it? Yeah.
It was a 20-week police academy. And then we would ride with an FTO, a field training officer, for 32 weeks. So it was a total of 1 year training, which, by the way, a lot of people don't realize this, but there's a little scary fact if you never thought about this before. It takes twice as long to become a hairdresser than it does to be a police officer. Just so you know, you can't touch somebody's hair with a pair of scissors unless you've had 2 years of training, but you can get a badge and a gun after 1 year. So just remember that. That's right.
Over 75, I went as a city officer in West Virginia. I went to the West Virginia State Police Academy for basic law enforcement training. I think back then it was 12 weeks. And even the DEA Academy, when I went through that, was 13 weeks. I think it's 17 or 18 weeks now. But
yeah, we had 20 weeks in the academy, and then we would ride with 4 different field training officers, 8 weeks each, and then we would evaluate you, and then after that, you're on your own.
Yep. So when you were in the academy, any goofy, funny stories go on while you're in there that you can share with us? Because there's always something going on in the academy.
Yeah, I don't really remember anything specific, goofy or funny, because people always ask me that, as a cop. It's like, what's the craziest thing you ever saw? And you're like, how do you answer that question? Because like what I consider crazy and what you consider crazy might be 2 different things.
It usually is
all the time. So but I don't really remember anything in the police academy that stood out in there. Just a lot of silliness with the guys and stuff. We all had nicknames for each other or whatever. In fact, my last name is Manganello since I was younger anyway, but they all call me Mango. But they would always sing little tunes and stuff. They call me Manganello. Little stuff like that. So once you hear that, you can't. Mango Jello. I was all of it. So Man Jello. They love that one. But
that's fun.
All kinds of little stuff. But no, we had a good time in the police academy. We had a good group in there. As a matter of fact, it was ironic because usually almost every police academy, somebody either gets fired or they quit before you graduate. And we didn't have one person quit or get fired.
Really?
Oh, I couldn't believe it. In fact, I don't even know a class that was like that since then. But I'm not saying nothing happened after we graduated. Let's be fair.
Right.
But yeah, but while we were in there, we had 29 people in there, and 29 people stuck it out. We made it and we graduated. So
wow.
it was pretty impressive. Looking back at the time, I didn't know any different, but looking back on it, it's pretty impressive.
It is. I mean, even our DEA Academy class was 50. We started with 50. We graduated 44, I think.
Right.
And I think we lost maybe 1 to academics, 1 or 2 to PT, maybe 1 for firearms, and then one guy who would have been our number 1 student, this big strapping, I mean, he's a poster child for male stripper club, to be quite honest with you. He was a scientist by profession, comes in, extremely intelligent, just maxed out their first PT test. You could get a score as high as 50, and he's probably in the low to mid 40s. And when we went to the range, we came back one day, and we came to class one morning, and he was gone. They would move him out in the nighttime, and finally we found out what happened. He didn't realize we were carrying guns and that he might have to shoot somebody as a DEA special agent. So he's not quite as smart as he thought. I guess he's intelligent, but he's might be book smart, but maybe not a lot of common sense there. So
there you go. Well, but he didn't want to carry a gun after that, or what? Like he was a kid?
He didn't want to carry a gun. Yeah, I mean, DEA has its own laboratory, so I'm sure they would have brought him over as a scientist, but I'm sure it wouldn't pay as much as he could make in private industry either.
Right.
So, well, whatever. At least we found out early. The thing that I didn't like about it is, and I had a roommate that ended up quitting halfway through, and I don't have any sympathy for him because I know so many other cops that are trying to get on to the feds that wanted to come to DEA, and they didn't get a spot, but he did, and then he pissed it away.
Right.
When he moved out, it was on a Saturday, and a bunch of us were whatever we were doing, and he came in and asked us for help. Hey, can you help me carry my bags downstairs? Nope. You're not one of us anymore. You're a quitter.
That's right.
So never give up.
That's it.
So you hit the streets now. Did you get any? Do you have any say so where you're going to get stationed in the city, or you go wherever they tell you to go?
Well, we got a wish list. Basically, at the time we had 5 different divisions. Back when I got hired on, it was Louisville City Police. Mm-hmm. So it was just the division of Louisville is basically it. Louisville Division of Police. It was just the city police, and then we had a county police. In 2004, we merged and became Louisville Metro. So I came on with the city, and back then it was like we were the real police. The county police, they didn't know what police work really was because we were in the middle of the city, and we'd make fun of them. They were all the good-looking cops. They had better uniforms, better pay. They had a little thing on their gun belt to carry their hair mousse, or whatever at the time, that type of thing. So we used to make fun of them all the time. And then we wound up merging, and all became one unit. But anyway, we got to put a wish list in and say what divisions we want to work in, and they would do their best to accommodate us. So I put in where I wanted to work, and I got where I wanted to work. So it was pretty good. I worked in what's called the 4th Division, and when I worked down there, it was like inner city, and worked a lot of the project, that kind of stuff too. And I got a lot of police. It was the busiest division in our whole city, is to this day, as a matter of fact too.
And by busy, do you mean most dangerous?
Most calls for service. You got the most runs during the day, and more higher risk stuff. You dealt with more robberies, carjackings, that kind of stuff, and you're just going to see a lot more action than the ones that are out more in the county areas.
What is wrong with us is that we want to go to the most dangerous place we can once we put that badge on. What the heck is wrong with us?
It's interesting because when I eventually got in the police academy as an instructor, and we'll get to that in a little bit too, I'm sure. But the thing is I tell them there's jobs, there's careers, and there's callings. And I think being a police officer really is a calling. I didn't know that at the time. I was being called to be a police officer, but I didn't realize it when I was getting it surely as a job. I wasn't even looking for as a career as much as a job, but I needed something with benefits. And then I realized, hey, this is actually a great career, you know? And then I realized, wait a minute, this is more than just a career. It's actually a calling, and there's something deeper about that. And I think only people that are in that know, and the people that are in those type of professions know what that means. But that's what it is. And then so if that's the case, if you're truly wanting to be a cop, you want to go where police work is. And police work sometimes is dangerous. Police work is dirty. Sometimes it's just not the most glamorous thing, but you want to go out there, and that's the job you want to do.
Yep. And it's all about, let me just ask you, because a lot of people think, well, cops just, they go be cops because they want to be macho and they want to kill somebody. Have you ever met a cop that joined because they wanted to kill somebody?
I never met anybody that even wanted to shoot somebody. Never have I met somebody like that. I never met a cop that was going to go out and look for people just because of their color, their skin, because of their socioeconomic position. Nothing. Am I saying they're not out there? I don't. Nobody that I've ever known of. Nobody's ever voiced it or shown any signs of it that I've ever seen. And I've been around a lot of cops in 22 years. So that's a big misconception that's out there.
Exactly.
We all have biases here and there. That's just human nature. But I don't know anybody that acts on them and that works their job as such.
Right.
Goes out hunting people for anything except their behavior. When I say I'd go out hunt, I'm going to go out hunting today. I'm hunting for people that are making victims of people.
Exactly.
I don't care what color you are. I don't care how tall you are. I don't care how short you are. I don't care what you look like. You could be the best looking guy or girl out there. If you're making a victim of somebody, you know, you don't need to be on the streets. So we need to take care of that. That's what I worked with.
Yep. I like that. Very well said there. So we've been going a little while here, Allan. I want to take a little break now for our listeners. This is going to be the end of part one. Come back and join us tomorrow because now we've got Allan on the streets of Louisville as a full-fledged police officer. We're going to get more into some of the activities he was involved with. I want to talk more about his Jiu Jitsu training and what he's doing now. And he's also going to share a very sad story with us. So come on back tomorrow. Thank you very much for coming over to join Murph in the morning here. And I'll see you tomorrow. Hey, players, that's the end of part one. Part two comes out, as always, on Tuesday. In the meantime, just a reminder that Game of Crimes is now posting interview videos on YouTube. You can find those at Game of Crimes Podcast. Our website is gameofcrimespodcast.com, where you'll find all our episodes, our guests, book lists, merchandise, and more. And for more content, join us on patreon.com/gameofcrimes. I have several monthly episodes that range from silly to serious, so come on over and join the fun. In the meantime, everyone stay safe. I'll see you tomorrow for part two.